All right, mistake number three, reinforcing the good food, bad food paradigm. And so I kind of alluded to this a moment ago, but this is the way that it might show up in the workplace. Maybe we promote taking unhealthy food out of work areas or giving people lists of healthy foods that they should eat. And of course, they're always pretty and they're done in positive phrases. Maybe we have a healthy eating potluck where everybody's supposed to bring their favorite recipe or their favorite healthy food. There's nothing wrong with healthy foods, except what it does then is it turns you into the food police. And it causes employees to create this internal list of off limits or forbidden foods, bad foods that they aren't allowed to eat. Now, we all know that these kinds of foods are foods that are enjoyable, they're delicious, they certainly appear a lot in our abundant food environment. And so we have this whole list of foods that we're trying to constantly avoid. So I don't think there's anything wrong with an individual making choices about what they eat and don't eat based on their own health and their own choices in terms of how they feel or health conditions that they're managing. But when we create this bad food list, we actually create a whole other set of problems for people, because the longer people go without eating, or the longer they go trying to avoid these forbidden foods, the more problems they will have with feelings of deprivation, which increase feelings of cravings, and the more it increases their feelings of powerlessness. Here in Am I Hungry, we say that this drives the eat, repent, repeat cycle. And maybe you've experienced it yourself. You're on a plan, it's January 5th, and you're doing great, and you're avoiding the break room, and you're bringing your own food to work, and you're spending all this time trying to plan what you will and won't eat. But ultimately, when your willpower goes down, your hunger goes up, your stress goes up, and then you eat, you actually feel guilty about it, and that drives more overeating. The other thing that it does is it reinforces these inherent fear-based thoughts, because in our culture, we are exposed to these messages all the time. And so you, as a health and wellness professional in the workplace, might inadvertently be reinforcing these fear-based messages that actually become self-fulfilling prophecies. So for example, if I let myself eat certain foods, I won't make healthy choices. Here we've found in our work that that's exactly the opposite of what happens. When all foods are allowed, then people actually begin to naturally balance their choices over the day, over the week, over their lifetime. I'll feel guilty. Well, guilt is an external construct. We feel guilty because we've eaten certain foods that have been labeled bad. In Am I Hungry, we teach a concept instead, that instead of feeling guilty, when you eat a particular food and you don't feel good afterward, you might regret it. So it's not about guilt, it's more about regretting the choice that I made because now I don't feel good. Regret leaves the door open for learning. I can actually learn from the mistakes that I've made by noticing the effects of those mistakes. And that's actually what mindful eating is really all about, is making small steps and then making choices so that ultimately I get the results that I want, which is to feel good, not to be good. Another fear-based thought is I can't trust myself. Well, this is an ironic issue, because what happens is that when you make foods forbidden, then you increase those feelings of deprivation and cravings, like I said before. And so when you finally eat those foods, you feel out of control. You feel like you've blown it. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where the foods I'm not supposed to eat, or the bad foods, I actually end up overeating, not because I can't trust myself or I'm addicted to those foods, but because they were forbidden in the first place. This is a hard concept for most people to wrap their brains around, but I will tell you, in Am I Hungry, when people get this, and they get it pretty quickly, they will find that they're able to have all kinds of foods around them without going into this loss of control kind of behavior that they were experiencing before. And then, as I mentioned, if I eat a bad food, I won't be able to stop. Well, if you know you're going to be allowed to have that food whenever you want it, there's no reason to eat all of it right now. You're not going back on your diet tomorrow or January 1st. And so it really causes foods to lose their power over you. So, how do we do this? Well, we internalize the process of decision making. What am I going to eat? So it's really about creating an inside out approach. We're not using a list of good foods and bad foods, but we're teaching a decision making process that takes into account my personal preferences, both in general, plus what I'm wanting at this moment in time, health considerations, side effects of foods that I choose, and even availability. And each of these factors can be decided on from an inside out place. So ultimately, the intention is to learn a flexible approach that balances eating for enjoyment and eating for nourishment. This flexible approach can go into a vacation, it can go to a party when I'm stressed out or there's a high availability of certain foods. I have the ability to make decisions for myself without either consulting a list or going off the plan and then going back on it when that situation is over.